Welcome to Nature's Neighbor on AM 1230 KPRL. Nature's Neighbor. We're live and local and all about living sustainably right here on the Central Coast.
Hello, everyone. Hello, Central Coast. This is your host, Melanie Blankenship, sitting in the studio here at KPRL with our boy, Chad Stevens, ready to take your call. Give us a call if you have any questions in regards to food, family, farming, and beautiful home being right here on the Central Coast of California. 238-5775, 238-KPRL. Oh my, do I have a lot to talk about today. Coming off this beautiful holiday, the biggest food holiday of the year. I hope everyone out there had a wonderful Thanksgiving, and I hope that everyone enjoyed their ginormous turkeys that we harvested. I still laugh because our average size pound turkey that went out of our store on Tuesday and Wednesday was 23.8 pounds. Crazy, because last year it was hard for us to get a 15-pound turkey, and this year we had ginormous turkeys. And the looks on people's faces when they said, is this going to even fit in my oven? So I had a lot of compliments. I had a lot of questions on how to cook these big turkeys, and I'm very, very, very excited with the turnout of our turkeys. And onward and upward, we, kind of take a little break on our poultry. Right now we have chickens and stuff that are still being raised for meat, and we'll continue to process probably until about the first of the year. So we'll have open range chickens, ducks, geese available in Nature's Touch. But turkeys, we have a couple left. It doesn't look like we're going to have very many left for their Christmas. So if you want one, give us a call. We'll put a name on yours, and we'll get you a Christmas bird. We're focused right now mostly on prime rib and ham. We do all local. Everything is on a small scale, farmed, and everything is raised and processed locally. So not a big amount of stuff. So if there's any chance you might want any of these meats for your holiday dinner, Christmas being holiday dinner, give us a call at Nature's Touch at area code 805-434-3062, and we'll start taking names and getting everybody the meats that they need for their holiday. I want to take this time, because I haven't been able, and running out of time on the last couple of shows that we've had, to talk more gardening. People are asking those questions. I had a gentleman a couple weeks ago call in about covering his lawn with leaves, and I have quite a few people, asking about mulching and composting at the store. And so I want to take this time and hope that I can answer a general question and help a lot of people at the same time. And I want to keep in mind, first of all, growing a garden under a tree and or using leaves as a compost or a mulch. Keep in mind, look around you in nature. What grows under an oak tree? What grows under a pine tree? What grows under eucalyptus trees? Usually here and there in very spotty weeds, a little bit of grass, but very, very little. And why is that? Well, nature has its way of dealing with things naturally. There's a lot to be said about why an evergreen continuously drops leaves throughout the whole entire year. There's a lot to be said about why deciduous trees, or trees that lose their leaves in the wintertime, why they do it all at once. What goes on in nature is when a leaf is dropped from a tree, it's a weed deter, or it avoids things to compete with that tree, for instance, for nutrients or moisture. So the leaves drop, and it suffocates everything else out that might potentially take that water or that nutrients away from the tree. And then as the leaf breaks down and becomes compost naturally, it actually feeds the soil that feeds that tree. So leaves are based upon the tree that it falls from. So look at your oak trees. Oak trees right now are all dropping their brown drying out leaves and look at what's going on. Leaves are going to create an insulation for that tree. When we, start to get these frosty mornings, and especially right now with us not having any rain or moisture in our soil, what's happening is every time it freezes in the early morning, any bit of moisture that might be left in the soil starts to evaporate. That's what's freezing. And so a heavy amount of evaporation is starting to take place. So those leaves are acting on an insulation barrier or a mulch to insulate whatever bit of moisture that might be still available in the soil to protect it, to allow the tree to continue to survive. Then also when leaves are all built up around that tree, then it starts to rain. And you're going to start to see a lot of mold, mildew, spores, and different types of oily based material that starts to come from the leaves that are around that tree. What is that? That is a compost tea that penetrates the soil that goes to feed that tree. And why I say that is because keep in mind, when you're using those leaves for other forms of gardening, those leaves were dropped from that tree to ward off anything that would be competing with that tree. So if you're trying to grow lawn or trying to grow a vegetable garden under a tree or use leaves in your garden, keep in mind of what those leaves are supposed to be doing. Those leaves are supposed to be breaking down to feed that tree and to ward off anything that might compete with that tree. So looking at the big picture, would you want to use those leaves, raw leaves, in your garden or use it as a mulch? Not necessarily the best choice. What I do with our leaves is we accumulate them, pile them up, and then layer them into a compost pile with a blend of sort of different things: manures, grass clippings, kitchen scraps, other leaves, and then we allow it to cook and then cook off and then become compost. Then that compost, once it's fully cooked up to a good 165-degree temperature and you don't have a musty mildew or manure smell in your compost, then that is the material that we use in our garden bed or our fields that we use to grow our food in. So nature gives us a lot of different things, but we got to also understand what nature is trying to do. Nature is a pretty cool concept when it comes to survival. Everything ends up, if we can figure this out, everything ends up balancing out each other. But when it comes down to it, it's all about survival. Pine trees, especially pine trees, when they drop their leaves or their needles, they break down into an acid, and it's really hard to break those down. I'll be honest with you. When I put those into my compost pile, I limit the amount of pine or eucalyptus even into my compost pile because of that strong acid that they form ends up throwing a little bit of my chemistry off in my compost. So it takes a lot more work to get a good amount of compost cooked to be able to use it for a vegetable or a compost base. So keep that in mind too when you are using leaves or trying to grow under trees. The best place for a good garden is in an open field with less amount of tree exposure. The full sun is always best, especially when you're growing, things right now, broccolis, cauliflower, kale, spinaches, those kind of things, because even the minimal leaf drop that happens in the spring or throughout the continued season, they don't have to compete with those leaves when they're not as exposed to them. So keep all of that in mind. I wanted to be able to touch on that because I have a lot of people asking those same questions about what to do with all the leaves that are falling right now. So focus putting them into a compost pile, and you're going to be a lot better off with your growing. So on the same note with mulching and composting, with the weather being what it is right now, with it being so dry, and then we're also, the forecast is showing 20-degree night and morning temperatures in the next couple of days. There was a potential possibility for rain tomorrow, but they're already calling it off. But as I emphasized a little bit earlier in my talk here, every time it freezes, the moisture is drawn to the surface of the soil level, so that it's bringing up the moisture. Any bit of moisture that's in the soil, When it freezes, it draws it up to the surface. And every time it freezes, it creates evaporation. So not only are we losing the water when it's dry like this, but freeze also helps evaporation and dehydration as well. How do you feel when you're out in this cold? Our lips start to get chapped. We tend to get a little bit more dehydrated naturally. Well, that's also what's going on in the soil too. So if you have a vegetable garden planted, or you're trying to prolong anything, keep in mind this is the best time to be applying compost to your garden. Remember, I said this a little bit ago, but compost is something that does not have a musty, mildew, or manure smell. Manure is not compost. Manure is manure. It needs to go into a compost pile and be blended into other things. Manure is where the host of E. coli and all the other types of funguses and bacteria that should not be consumed and or exposed to something that you might be consuming. Know that you need to break that down. You need to cook that off first before putting that into anything that you might consume. With that, compost, lightly top dressing compost into your garden bed. Compost creates the heat. It allows the heat to stay into the soil. It also helps keep moisture available for your plants. But this is also the time of the year where you're going to hear me say that you need to mulch. Mulching is huge right now, and mulching is a way of putting a blanket on the soil. So things that I suggest for mulching is straw, not alfalfa, not forage, not oat hay, but a clean, no-seed straw. Getting a good layer of straw around the base of all your plants after you've composted it. That's, your compost is that extra flannel sheet that you put on your bed. Then the straw is that nice big down comforter that you are putting on your garden bed. Haha, same thing. That's what straw does. It helps insulate your soil. It helps keep all the moisture in there. And also, too, keep in mind, when you are watering this time of the year, water also acts as an insulator. So dry cold is dangerous to plants, where wet cold is safer for plants. Water acts as an insulator around the roots of your plants and will tend to prevent it from getting frost damage when there's moisture present. Now keep in mind, when we get into these higher temperatures like we just experienced the last couple of days that I've heard, because I wasn't here, these warm temperatures is also creating another type of evaporation as well, where what is happening if you overwater your plants this time of the year is mold and mildews and different types of spores will tend to grow. So it's very, very important that your soil is aerated, that it's composted, and that it's mulched. But it's not sitting in soggy soil and then doing that. So keep in mind when you're out there in your garden, something that is cakey wet, don't water, or, mushy kind of wet, don't water. Let it eventually dry itself out, but keep the compost, keep the mulch there, but allow it to breathe, but don't let it dry out. So many fun, exciting ways to garden, and a lot of people tend to have very many different ways of doing it. This show is about sharing those different ways, and I would love for people to call in and talk about the ways that they get their garden to thrive during the middle of winter, because this is the time where majority of our North Countyers don't want to be out in that cold but want to get the fresh food, and you can't get it better unless you're doing it yourself. So here we are on the first half of our show. We will be back right after these messages that we have right here. KPRL, give us a call, 238-5775-238-KPRL. Welcome back to our little second half of our Nature's Neighbors show. I am your host again, Melanie Blankenship, sitting in the studio with Chad Stevens, ready to take your phone call. Give us a call, 238-5775-238-KPRL. I have a couple of announcements that I want to share with all of you. This coming up Saturday, which is December 7th, December 6th. I don't know what the date is, but it's this coming up Saturday. What's the date, Chad?
This Saturday is the 7th.
Thank you, Chad. Okay, so it's not even supposed to be December. That's what's my problem.
Right.
This year has gone by so fast, but December 7th at 1 o'clock inside Nature's Touch, I am doing a Seed Savers workshop. We are gathering with the San Luis Seed Savers group, and I'm going to teach you how to collect seed, save seed, define seed. What do I mean by that? I have all the questions that are coming to us about what is open pollinated, what is genetically modified, what is, a hybrid, and how long can I save seeds, and how do I save them? So those are the kind of questions that I'll be answering in person inside our store at Nature's Touch at 225 South Main Street in beautiful downtown Templeton. I would just like a little bit of a heads up that you're coming, just so that I'm putting together a little bit of a package of some of my own collected seeds that I want to share with you. And so I just want to know how many people are coming. So give us a little bit of an RSVP, Facebook, email, phone call. Nothing formal. Just let me know that you're coming and how many people are coming with you. Let's talk seed. Let's get a North County connection to seed saving. There's a cool group that gathers in San Luis, but I would love to be able to get us all and join us at Nature's Touch, 225 South Main Street. Give us a call at 434-3062 or email me, nature'stouch@sbcglobal.net, and I have a phone call. Chad?
Good afternoon. You're on Nature's Neighbor.
Oh, hi. I had a question for Melanie about a tree question, actually. We planted some new trees on our property. We've been here about 5 years. One was a fruitless mulberry that developed very well for about 2 or 3 years, and then suddenly it died.
Okay.
It's so dead that the trunk is split, and I just wanted to know if she may have a reason for that.
Did it just split down the middle, or did the sides start to kind of chap away? Give me a little bit more in depth about the split.
Okay, it was very healthy. Right after we planted it, the leaves were big and supple, and we noticed this season that the leaves didn't come back, and the ones that were left on, were dying. And when I took a closer examination, the trunk was split vertically, right down the middle of the trunk. So it's a dead tree, but we have no idea why. We have a good drip system. We fed it. We mulched it. I have no idea why this happened.
It could be a couple of different things. I mean, yeah, fruitless mulberries thrive in our area. They, make a beautiful shade tree. And actually, if we could ever get more people to plant fruited mulberries actually produce very well here, and they're actually really good too. But to me, it sounds like something was disturbing your roots. Possibly go for ground squirrel, or even just the fact that maybe the plant or the tree itself might have had something going on. But to me, when you say that it produced really well the first year, and then the second year it didn't really get that good amount of leaves, and then testing, to see if anything was alive, that the actual trunk itself was dead. To me, it sounds like, without seeing it, a good possibility that something was eating the roots of it, or it got exposed to something, or that's a fun thing about farming in this area. There's too many things it could be. It could be the fact that when it was budding out or leafing out, we had some weird frost during that time when mulberries were producing or getting ready to produce early spring. And when the trees are starting to come out of dormancy, that is their weakest time. It's when they're starting to push and everything is starting to move again and coming out of the deep sleep. It's like when the bear comes out of hibernation. It's its most vulnerable time because it's so weak and it's so hungry, and so it's same thing with our fruit trees. And then for us to get those kind of a weird frost, there could be a chance that it got zapped, meaning it got frozen when it was at its most vulnerable time. You're more than welcome to, if you still have the tree and it still has a little bit of leaf on it, if you wanted to, send me a picture of it, and maybe I can give you a better diagnosis kind of thing with it. But unfortunately, I think that if the tree's not doing good and it's split down the center and it's dry, I would take it out, and more than likely you're going to probably see something had been chewing on the roots of that tree, and maybe chip or shred it and mulch it and compost it, and unfortunately use that tree for that kind of form instead of the shade form. Does that...
Do you think could have been overwatered? I have drip systems on everything, and I'm just wondering if it was root rot or... Because we used chicken wire when we planted it, but the tree is probably 15, 20 feet tall.
Oh, so
the trunk is probably 6 feet in diameter.
Yeah, I mean, overwatering could be the possibility very easily as well. How about when it was leafing out in the early spring? Did you get a good amount of leaf and then the leaves just dropped, or did it just not leaf out at all?
It didn't leaf out for one season. It was about 3 years old. Mm-hmm. It was relatively mature, but it didn't leaf out this spring.
Okay.
And then it just died.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, to me, it's life, so it could even be in the fact that when you bought it, it had something going on at that particular time with it not leafing out at all. To me, it sounds like definitely something in the roots. But thank you. You're very welcome. Thank you so much for the call, and here we are at the end of our little quick show. So much to talk about, so little time, but we'll be back here next Monday, right here on KPRL. And again, don't forget, this coming up Saturday, the 7th, at Nature's Touch, our Seed Savers group. Give us a call. I'll post it on Facebook as well. And just know, too, Nature's Neighbor Facebook page, we put a lot of information about our TV show, as well as this radio show. We got a lot of things going on. Follow us on Facebook. Come into Nature's Touch at 225 South Main in beautiful downtown Templeton. And again, guys, thank you so much for all of your support. We really, truly appreciate it. Have a good week.
Nature's Neighbor, every Monday afternoon at 12:35.